Megadeth is a band that I'd wager a pretty hefty amount of you have already heard of. 5 of their first 6 albums went platinum in North America. They've been nominated for 12 Grammys and won 1 of them. Their guitar work is so iconic that they were directly commissioned to write the finale song to Guitar Hero 6 to ensure that it had challenging enough guitar solos. And their album Rust in Peace is regarded as such a crowning achievement in music that it's a running joke in the cultural music zeitgeist to claim that humanity will literally never do any better than that. And even though the band was formed due to splintering off from longtime rivals Metallica, Megadeth has managed to be better than Metallica in every single way. Yeah, I fucking said it. Do something about it. The success, staying power, and skillful virtuosity of Megadeth is due to a ton of different people and factors, but sitting at the throne of all of it, from the very beginning, is the King Kahuna himself, lead vocalist and guitarist, Dave Mustaine. Dave Mustaine is, to put it lightly, a controversial figure, and I'm not referring to the fact that he plays heavy metal and some really stupid old people think that that shit condemns you to hell or something. So what if my favorite song is Burn Every Church by Goat Fucker? I'm a good Christian boy. No, it's because there's some fun topics of discussion that we're going to be covering throughout this video about Dave's past, his association with other musicians, and the world at large. And there's a very important reason that I need you all consciously aware of Dave's record of drug-fueled violence, conspiracy theory hijinks, and polarizing political statements. It's because today, I'm going to tell you about this brave little redhead and his band Megadeth, which is, keep in mind, a thrash metal band that regularly sings about mass murder, mental instability, and government oppression. And I'm going to tell you about them and how they once went on an action-packed spacefaring adventure with Daffy motherfucking Duck. Now, I gave you that slight history lesson as a reminder of the fact that you've at the very least heard Megadeth's music somewhere before, whether you realized it was from them or not. But I don't need to tell you who Daffy Duck is. I probably don't even need to tell you about Duck Dodgers, the Looney Tunes parody of old school science fiction serials like Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon from the 1950s. What you may not remember, unless you have good taste and watch my obsessive cartoon retrospective videos to keep this fact in the forefront of your mind, is that in 2003, Warner Brothers rebooted Duck Dodgers as a comedy space opera cartoon for Cartoon Network. And it was good. It was really genuinely quite good. It was an entertaining series about Daffy Duck and his sidekick Porky Pig traveling the galaxy as space patrolmen. It had everything you could possibly want from such a concept. Bombastic intergalactic characters, deadpan sarcastic joke delivery, an ebony-skinned alien war princess whose lack of a mouth doesn't do anything to dissuade me from trying to discover how good she is at gargling. It had it all, including a very special episode in its 3rd season titled In Space, No One Can Hear You Rock. It's the one where Megadeth shows up, and you're smart. You figured out that that's where this was going hours ago, so let's watch it, because I want to talk about it and make fun of that. I want to talk about it, make fun of it, and, I don't know, retrospecting, review it, and talk about the fact that it exists. Okay, I am going to walk off camera now, but I'm really just walking to the side of my room. I'm not going anywhere. It's just an illusion to make you think that it's a transition of me moving to another space. It's not real. It's computer editing. It's fake. So don't be surprised when I'm actually not going anywhere. Okay, here we go. Okay, wait, okay. I don't know about you guys, but before we start, this title sequence already made me laugh out loud. I mean, in my mind, it makes so much more sense for Warner Brothers to just have inserted a parody of Dave Mustaine for this episode, or just to get him into a recording booth for like an hour just to get a last-minute check-writing cameo. Hell, just having him shout into his iPhone's voice memo function while he's in the middle of demoing album lyrics makes more sense to me than this episode actually existing. This dude is pulling a Scooby-Doo and sliding his ill-fitting ass into this car cartoon like the Harlem Globetrotters. And in the same way that I think a talking dog mystery show has very little to do with comedic basketball antics, I'm anxious to see how they're going to tie one of the big four of thrash metal alongside a spacefaring lisp duck. The episode begins with Duck Dodgers taking a shower to one of my personal all-time favorite metal hits, Sonatas for Piano number 14, 8, and 23 by Rudolf Serkin.
Hey, who's messing with my tubes?
Why, you don't believe me? Well, that's what Shazam said this song was when I looked it up. I'm assuming Beethoven was just the producer or something. Never heard of him. It turns out all the music on Earth is being siphoned by a new weapon developed by the Martians called the Sax Oblivion, which leaves easy listening jazz as a byproduct of its insidious activation.
Earth will submit to Martian rule or be destroyed. You have 3 hours. Call us.
This is a pretty convoluted plan when you think about it. I have a question for the push broom helmet boy and his Bukkake fan mommy from Mars over there. What constitutes music? What are the parameters that this machine is looking for? If I go to a friend's birthday party and I clap my hands like a baboon and sing "Happy Birthday to you," are the lyrics going to be stripped out of my mouth and replaced with the dulcet tones of a bar lounge act, somehow contorting my vocal cords in impossible ways? What about live performances from actual musicians and instruments? How does the machine decipher music from literally any other noise on the planet? If they specified that this thing stole the energy from electronic recordings or sound producing devices or radio airwaves, I'd get it. But to just say music is too broad for me to buy into this inconsequential premise that no one's even thought of or talked about in the last 20 years. Why am I still talking about it?
Hey, what happens if there's more noise than that horn can handle?
But the sheer volume of volume we're talking about, it'd have to be the loudest noise ever heard.
You want loud? Nobody rocked louder, faster, and harder than Dave Mustaine.
Fucking... Huh? I understand that the entire purpose of this episode even existing is for Dave Mustaine to have a guest starring role in a Looney Tunes cartoon, but it's pretty out of nowhere, right? Let's back up a bit. First off, the loudest sound ever heard on Earth was the 1883 eruption of Krakatoa, a big boy volcano located in the island southwest of Indonesia. This might actually be a cool place to visit. Let's check out some Google reviews. Too hot. It was kinda warm. Worst. Very volcanic. Well, yeah, you'd think that one would earn more than 1 star. The loudest sound. I'm afraid. Bad. Not pleasant Easter Island head emoji. And finally, bad experience when I jumped into the volcano. It was not hot enough to enjoy it. And I think that last guy might be kidding. The eruption of Krakatoa was so loud, it was heard almost 2,000 miles away in Australia, and the acoustic pressure from the sound wave circled the Earth 3 times. So problem solved, right? Forget this bewildering heavy metal animation crossover and just have some brave soul play the bongos at the base of the volcano as we explode Krakatoa again, therefore qualifying Krakatoa as atmospheric accompaniment and making its blast officially classified as music. Well, you can't do that, because people died. Like a lot of people. 36,417 people died from the combination of the eruption itself, the tsunamis, and the aftershocks that it generated. Besides, I think we can be a little more precise than destroying the Martian superweapon at the cost of making the entire continent of Asia go deaf. But I still think the smartest play here would just be put a battery-powered radio inside of an atom bomb or next to a space shuttle launch so that the Sax Oblivion picks up on it and destroys itself. But fine! Let's say we can't cheat the system. Let's say somehow the machine knows what is and is not organic, authentic music played from over 140 million miles away on Mars. Let's say for the sake of argument and ironically cartoon logic, we in fact need the help of the loudest rocker in history. So of course for this job, we're going to call... No one can be told what high quality audio is. You have to listen to it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue Raycon everyday earbuds, and the journey begins. You put them in your ears and listen to whatever you want to listen to. You take the red Raycon Everyday Earbuds, and the exact same thing happens. Because Raycon Everyday Earbuds come in a wide variety of colors and have a 32-hour battery life. Personally, I think it's time that I jack in. Whoa! Hey! Wow! Huh. Look at that. These are perfect for listening to the one song that I listen to whenever I'm in the Matrix, Spy Break by Short One. You know, that Matrix song that goes... Raycon's optimized gel tips are designed to fit comfortably in your ears so that they actually stay there. And whether you're running away from enemy agents or dodging bullets like they do, they're not gonna move. I tend to use them for practicing my kung fu, as well as making dated references to 25-year-old movies. Thanks to the earbuds tap functions, I can log out at any time without worrying about finding a phone line. And the noise isolation mode helps me stay focused as I do other matrixy stuff. Like fighting 100 clones of Hugo Weaving. Click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/Huggbees to get 20% off of your Raycon purchase, plus free shipping. That's buyraycon.com/Huggbees for 20% off and free shipping. Raycon, the best earbuds to wear when eating spaghetti and meatballs. Wait, why is that in the script? That has nothing to do with the Matrix. About one of 50 different people. It turns out we don't know who the actual de facto loudest rock and or metal band in history is. The Guinness Book of World Records actually used to give out awards for the loudest band in the world, but they stopped doing it in the early 90s, fearing that promoting it would just encourage bands to try to outdo each other, which would result in a worldwide epidemic of hearing damage. There's a lot of notable bands on the milestone list you probably would have guessed. Blue Cheer, Deep Purple, The Who, Motorhead, Iron Maiden, it's all pretty much who you'd expect. From what I could research, this is actually a hotly debated topic. Manowar is the band that allegedly achieved the loudest possible concert, hitting 139 decibels, but it was only during the sound test and not the actual performance. And even then, this whole topic becomes a pissing match amongst bands and their fans alike. It's like scribbling a pencil as hard as you can on a desk. Fun, but pointless. But the important part is that not once on these lists on the internet or history videos or discussions amongst fans did I ever see Megadeth once mentioned as one of the top loudest bands. The fact of the matter is, if you want a band with impressively technical guitarmanship or a live act that's gonna fulfill your I really just need to shit on the US government for over an hour cravings, Megadeth is a great one to call on. But if we need someone who shreds the loudest, they're actually not the right choice. But you know what's really funny? There is one bad bitch who has each and every one of these headbangers beat when it comes to the loudest musical performance. Mother Nature. You ever hear this little thing called whale songs? That's the rhythmic noise that whales make while they're out and about fucking around in the water. Well, what is music if not made up of songs? And out of all of them, a sperm whale just so happens to be the loudest animal on Earth, racking in at a whopping 230 decibels. If you need the world's loudest musician, you can make like the bubonic plague and tell humanity to go fuck itself, because that title rightfully belongs to our sperm whales.
Dave Mustaine.
Who?
You know, Dave Mustaine of Megadeth. Man, back in the day, he put the heavy in heavy metal.
Hey, so real quick, I dabble in guitar in my spare time, and I gotta ask, what the fuck is going on with Dave's guitar here? Take a look at the headstock. This guy's got 5 tuning posts and only 3 tuning knobs, which makes absolutely no sense, alongside 3 posts which aren't even connected to any strings. Alright, you see how each string on a guitar has a tuning post and each of those posts have a tuning peg? You kinda need some version of that for every string, otherwise there's just gonna be no tension and you wouldn't be able to tune them. The only appropriate assumption to make here is no one at Warner Brothers Animation had ever seen a guitar before, and Dave never once left the recording booth to ask them what the fuck they thought they were doing with his bread and butter. I know this animation is for cable television cartoons, but Warner Brothers has a handful of pennies in their pocket to step it up beyond this. These greedy fat cats are just up the ladder from the Barbie movie. And you're telling me that the parent company of that parent company didn't divvy up any of the $1,435,542,607 gross of money that earned? And if you're just gonna write in the comments about how that movie came out decades after Duck Dodgers did, just shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear it. So it's off to a trip to the Rock and Roll Hall of History's basement, where the old sci-fi trope of cryogenically frozen famous person just ripe for the defrosting is about to kick off.
Paul McCartney, Madonna, Jim Morrison. Wait, here he is, Dave Mustaine. But there's no way we can thaw him out in time.
Try your best to ignore Dave Mustaine's low polygon count look here for a minute, and let's instead have a big, huge fight debate in the comments. What do you think of the legitimacy of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Because if the Rock and Roll Hall of History is an in-universe parody of that institution, then this show is taking a huge leap of faith on this set piece, because neither Megadeth nor Dave Mustaine are currently in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as of this video. Well, shit, man. I mean, one of the Grammy-winning, multi-platinum selling bands that helped start an entire subgenre of heavy metal isn't on the list? What a stupid oversight. Oh well, I guess mistakes happen. Excuse me, do you mean to say that Iron Maiden isn't on there either? Oh, wait, and Judas Priest was only indoctrinated in 2022? Well, shit, man. I guess the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame really tries to take in rock and roll only. No heavy metal allowed. Thank God Metallica made the Black Album, otherwise they wouldn't have gotten in. They got to join the musical elite by receiving the honor of befitting the most popular rock and roll bands. You know, like other inductees such as Eminem and Tupac Shakur.
Gentlemen and cadet, I present Dave Mustaine.
Where am I?
You're on a spaceship.
Thanks, but I'm not an idiot. I just can't remember anything.
Well, if Dave can't remember a thing, then how about I bring him up to speed and bring you folks at home a quality YouTube education by telling you about Dave Mustaine and how the public knows Dave Mustaine. There's a fun little story behind the journey of Dave's accolades earning him a spot on Cartoon Network, and it involves that little musical act that I alluded to earlier. No, it's not Eminem. What? Do you know what a fucking context clue is? I'm talking about Metallica. Most of you music fans out there already know the broad strokes of this story and have heard it a million times before. I know, but let's dive into the details for the people who don't know it, shall we? Dave Mustaine was the original lead guitarist in Metallica. You might recognize them as the largest heavy metal band ever on the planet. Ever. Okay, it's either them or Crotch Duster. I'm not sure which. I will have to do further research. Megadeth has a solid 5 platinum albums, right? And all of them were within their first 6 releases? That is pretty impressive. But Metallica only has platinum albums. Literally every album they've ever put out ever has gone platinum for the entirety of their 40-year career. Except for their newest one, but it's not even a year old as of this video, and with how they've updated qualifications for platinum records to count music streaming, it's gonna happen. It's fucking Metallica. You don't get to be the only band to ever play in Antarctica without being a little bit popular. Now, speaking of popular, sex, drugs, and rock and roll is often the motto of rock and roll. And alcohol happens to be a psychotropic central nervous system depressant, which means it's a drug. And Metallica in their early days, boy, did they love drugs. Specifically, they drank like fish. So the lineup of Metallica at the very beginning of things is James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, Cliff Burton, and Dave Mustaine, meaning that the band features 3 incredibly talented musicians and Lars Ulrich. And they're all partying all the time, keeping up with the immortal legacy started by Eddie Murphy. But Dave had a little bitty habit that he liked to partake in a lot alongside imbibing some booze. Dave used to like to play a game while inebriated called Beat the Shit Out of My Bandmates. Dave Mustaine was a violent drunk, at least according to a statement published on Loudwire by Dave Mustaine, which reads, quote, "I was a violent drunk." Now there's a ton of stories leading up to the tale of Dave's exile, different levels of confirmed violence from Mr. Mustaine, but there's also a lot of mixed up specifics. For example, one story that I used to incorrectly believe was that Dave Mustaine kicked James Hetfield's dog in a drunken stupor, which helped get him kicked out of the band. From what I've read now, most people corroborate that it was actually James who kicked Dave's dog because the dog was scratching their bandmate's car, and then Dave jumped on James in response. But the point is, while the details may be fuzzy and a lot of he said, she said, Dave is confirmed to have been a violent, out-of-control alcoholic in his younger years. So where am I going with all this? What does it matter? Well, it establishes a very strong precedent for Dave Mustaine that has followed him his entire life, that I have eloquently dubbed, "People fucking hate Dave Mustaine." Ever since the Metallica incident, there's been a loyal group of people from all over the world who, for one of many reasons, hate Dave Mustaine. Seriously, hate him. When looking up threads of Dave Mustaine hate for examples, I found this comment on Reddit that summarizes the whole thing. He's a dickhead. Signed, Megadeth fan. Seriously, even Megadeth fans understand that in the world of metal, fuck Dave Mustaine, that guy's a dick, reigns supreme. There's a whole torrent of reasons people have developed over time for why they hate Dave Mustaine. And while diving into them isn't too relevant for this video, you'll see where we're going with all this. Here's a sampling of what people have said on the internet is the reason they don't like him. And these reasons are all specifically ones that don't involve Metallica. He's beefed with other non-Metallica bands for petty reasons. He has poor working relationships with his former bandmates. He's a conspiracy theorist and/or a radical right-wing nutjob. He's an intolerant born-again Christian. And he's just an asshole because he is, okay? I pulled out the chair, which means it's story time, and I'm getting comfy. I want to tell you a true story of something that happened to me. This is no bullshit. This actually factually for real happened. Back in the early 2010s, there was a music tour called the Rockstar Energy Drink Mayhem Fest. Now, I know this was for sure a thing and not something my shut-in paranoid mind cooked up, because I found an internet image of the 2011 lineup on the famous internet website, Natalie's World. Now take a look at the lineup up here. There's a lot of things you can already point out as a red flag. First of all, even if just going by pure popularity and not music quality, Godsmack billed over Megadeth? Is someone high? I mean, I can understand Disturbed being the headliner just because they're so huge popular even back in 2011, but realistically, Megadeth should have been on top of the entire pile. Also, may God have mercy on the souls of anyone forced to listen to In Flames material written after the year 2000. That's got nothing to do with this video, I'm just very passionate about having better taste than everyone else. So I was at this show in about the 10th row or so, pretty damn close to the stage. Easily close enough that the bands on it could see us. Megadeth comes out onto the stage, and of course the crowd gets up to make some noise, woo! And I distinctly remember two things happening. Number one, while the vast majority of the audience cheered, you could hear audible boos amongst some of the crowd. It wasn't crazy and overwhelming, but certainly more than any other band of the tour had gotten by a long shot. In fact, I think they were the only band to get any boos the entire night. But number two, and even more vividly, the guy in front of us was a real big fat man who was holding 2 beers. This guy, as soon as Megadeth was in the front of the stage waving to the crowd and getting their instruments and gear, turned around, put his beers on the floor, then turned toward the stage directly at Dave and flipped Megadeth 2 birds as high in the air as he possibly could. And he held them there. I'm going to use one hand to demonstrate because I got to hold the mic. He held them there like this all the way until the intro of their first song, Hangar 18. And then, as they were going through the opening chords, he bent down, grabbed his beers, held them up with his fingers still extended like this, and side shuffled out of the aisle like that. He never returned. Now we talk about context, that sweet, juicy virgin context to wrap everything all together. Did you guys forget what the main point of this video is, what we're really talking about? I've just gotta say, out of all the musicians on Earth, Dave Mustaine is the last I would ever expect to go on a spacefaring adventure with Laffy Daffy motherfucking Duck. This cartoon existing is a sheer miracle of networking and brand negotiations, and I still to this day am trying to figure out how this was possible. Originally, I figured, okay, Warner Brothers owns Warner Music Group, which is a huge record label. Maybe they have Megadeth under contract, and this was just something that slipped in thanks to some boardroom meetings. But from what I can Google, that's not possible. Megadeth was partnered with Warner in some capacity, but only after 2013, and even then, the albums he released at the time when this cartoon came out were under a UK label called Sanctuary. So what the hell is going on? Well, thank God I made this video, because my 20-year-long mystery that often makes me chew my cornflakes a little more slowly in the morning going, huh, that is weird, finally draws to a close thanks to the world's most reliable source of information, Twitter! Back in 2016, this Twitter interaction happened where a fan made the same goofy assertion I did in noticing that Dave Mustaine being in Duck Dodgers is kinda wacky. I did it for my kids at the time. I wish more dads would put their kids first more often. Well, shit, that actually makes Dave sound like a pretty chill guy. Except he didn't capitalize the I at the beginning of his sentence, so now Dave's an asshole because he uses improper grammar. Put it on the board! Yeah. Oh, what are we doing? Oh yeah, the Duck Dodgers episode, I forgot. So there's some banter back and forth about what they're gonna do, since with Dave's memory gone, he obviously can't play any of his sonically destructive songs. And they do this gag about him being wrongly profiled in his own documentary, and it's actually kind of funny.
Genetically engineered in a lab and raised by Wolverine, Dave Mustaine went on to become the heart and soul of Megadeth.
I wasn't genetically engineered in a lab or raised by Wolverines.
Put it on the board! But Dodgers forgot to record the entire documentary, so all Dave knows about himself is things that aren't true, allegedly. Meaning this plan of shoehorning in a modern-day rock star to defeat an alien race from a future so inept they haven't even invented color television yet is doomed. And now the slapdash plan, courtesy of one delusional duck, is to reform Dave's band using the Space Crew, meaning they've all only got 1 hour left to learn to play their instruments up to the caliber of Megadeth standards. Let's listen to what we're working with. Oh yeah, they're fucked. There's some jokes about rock concerts and they're fine, but then there's this joke.
Let me hear you scream! A!
Aardvark!
B!
Bobcat!
C!
Chilean Chupacabra!
I really don't get it. That's the whole joke. Is it absurd because a heavy metal group is learning the alphabet? Is the joke that they're practicing their enthusiastic screaming via the alphabet? Why animals? Oh well, put it on the board! The big showdown finally arrives, and the Earth sets up a massive orbiting concert stage to enact their team-up plan between a strawberry blonde band leader and the Chinese restaurant menu item turned galactic hero. The Martians believe the Earthlings' attempts at saving the galaxy is foolhardy and stop to give them a chance to prove themselves.
Please welcome Megaduck!
Now normally this is where I'd ruminate on the fact that Megaduck is a far better title for this video than whatever I'm gonna come up with. But I need to stop the show because I think Dave is having a medical emergency. You alright, Dave? Facial paralysis is no laughing matter. Maybe he's shocked to learn that Slash is playing the bass for some reason and his rhythm guitarist is Hulk Hogan.
Ladies and gentlemen! Megadeth!
Now I remember.
And that's it! That's literally all it takes. Dave has been shown and told his band name a dozen times up to this point, but once it belts out from the vocal cords of a stuttering pig whose famous catchphrase is "son of a bitch,"
Oh, son of a gun. You thought I was gonna say son of a bitch, didn't you?
that's the trigger that toggles Dave's brain to remember how to play his guitar at a world-class level. Okay, now bear with me here. You're gonna have to work with me. You're gonna have to cut me some slack for the rest of this video. The entire rest of the episode, its whole remaining 3-minute runtime, is a music video for Megadeth's song Back in the Day. Now, thematically it works. It's taking a song that Dave wrote reminiscing about the birth of thrash metal and retrofitting it to be about how Dave, now in the future, remembers being a huge celebrity back in the day. And also, Daffy says the phrase back in the day like 3 times throughout the episode, but I'm probably gonna have to edit all that out anyway. And while it makes for a pretty fun climax to the episode, it makes for a gigantic headache in terms of my payday, because now I have to edit the episode to prevent both Warner Brothers cartoons copyright claiming me, and now have to try to prevent Megadeth's record label from copyright claiming me. Fuck this. I do it for you. I can't believe I get to say this on this part. This is a dream come true in itself. Here we go. Dave Mustaine of Megadeth, you're playing your guitar wrong. You know, there's a huge amount of channels popping up on YouTube with things like drums are never animated correctly, or what they animated versus what they actually played. Well, I now have an appreciation for those channels because I have some level of elementary school style talent when playing this instrument now. So the riff for Back in the Day is actually fairly simple. It sounds complicated because it's played fast, and you'll see if I try to play it at the speed that it's actually in the song, I'm probably gonna fuck it up. See? Let's do it again. You get the point. So let's slow it down so that I can show you what's actually happening, and that it's actually a lot simpler than what's on the screen. Basically, you're alternating between playing this string without fretting it, and fretting these 3 notes. So if we do it slowly, it's actually pretty simple, and more importantly, you'll notice my left hand is barely moving at all while playing it. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and copy what Dave is doing in the show, which consists of hitting these 3 strings and the fretboard in general. Here's what that sounds like. I'm not gonna lie, that actually sounded pretty fucking cool. So why does this happen so often? Why does the animation of instruments almost never sync up to what's actually being played and how you actually play it? Well, for this study specifically, let's ignore cartoons that try to intentionally exaggerate and bombast the movements and aren't trying to be realistic to any degree. The answer is simple. Actual music playing animation is either really boring or really difficult. Let's go with the boring angle first. A lot of technical proficiency in music comes down to the concept of the conservation of momentum. You want to do things with as little movement as possible to make every movement as achievable as possible, and to conserve as much of your endurance as possible so that you don't have to stop playing. Watching Dave do whatever the fuck this is in Duck Dodgers is exciting and gives energy to the performance from a visual standpoint. But watching me play something that sounds cool like this sounds good, but it's not very interesting to watch, is it? Especially when you have to translate it to animation where much of the nuance of movement is going to be lost. It's usually the other factors of a performance that tie together and make this cool to watch. If you're at a live show and seeing the band perform in person, or you're really into the actual music, for example. Hell, there's a reason that most rock and metal music videos feature heavy amounts of editing, or the live shows contain elaborate light and pyrotechnic displays. It's to maintain that energy that's at the music's core alongside any visual spectacle, since there's really only so much hype that a common audience member can get from directly watching someone play the instrument. Now, of course, this differs from song to song, and everyone likes a really cool guitar solo, but eventually the novelty of just watching people play the song with nothing else really does wear off, especially in cartoons, which are more a visual than auditory medium, and they need things to work with. And now let's talk about the other side of things. Sometimes shows and movies do take time to animate things properly. One prominent example I know of is Metalocalypse, where the guitar playing is animated 100% accurately. Except it might not be. I remember hearing a rumor when the show came out that they motion capped Brendan Small's hands, the creator and the guy who does all the music, but they actually went back and animated it afterwards to make it more interesting, because just watching his actual hand movements was too boring and lifeless. I didn't find proof of that online, but I do remember hearing that while the show was on the air. I would genuinely, I mean this, love if someone in the comments could tell me if that's not bullshit, because I want to believe it sounds right. But anyway, that just adds to my point. Either way, when you do go the route of authenticity, it's hard to animate things like that totally accurately. You've got to perfectly create specific, intricate movements and sync them up to the rhythm of the music, and again, make sure that the animation itself stays interesting and exciting, or else most people are going to get bored. This effort is usually wasted, since most people don't even notice this shit anyway, and it's a better stylistic choice to just go all out and not worry about being perfect. Oh boy, do I want to talk about this part. Oh yes, I do. First of all, everyone point and laugh at the fact that the animators forgot that if Dave stops playing the guitar is not magically going to play itself. It should not be in the song at that point. Whatever, let's look at the band lineup. Pictured here are who I believe to be bassist James McDonough, I have no idea if I pronounced that right, guitarist Glenn Drover, and drummer Sean Drover, who are brothers, and also they fucked up Sean's hair color, whatever. I present to you the most poorly aged part of this entire special. Not a single one of these guys is still in Megadeth anymore, and two of them weren't even in it very shortly after this episode aired. Let's consult the handy list of Dave Mustaine hatred again. Do you remember number 2? He has poor working relationships with his former bandmates. Well, we can update that one to instead say Dave is a notorious perfectionist who runs through band members like toilet paper, because he's only done with them after he shits all over them. Hey, are you a nerd and want to see a really convoluted and well-organized timeline graph? Bam! Check this out! This is a chronological chart of each and every member that has been in Megadeth since 1984. Now, you may notice on closer inspection that, holy shit, that's a lot of people. And also, Dave Mustaine somehow wasn't in his own band for about 2 years? Damn, I mean, I knew the guy had high standards, but I didn't think they were that high.
Where did those guys come from?
A museum! I brought them back to the ship just in case!
Wow, Megadeth really is one of the most high-profile bands on the planet, ain't it? Seeing as they froze the entire 2004 touring lineup. That's a really weird choice, seeing as number one of the best members of Megadeth, Marty Friedman, left the band long before 2004. And number 2, James McDonough seems to have disappeared from the world of music entirely since 2006. And lastly, the 2004 lineup of Megadeth is actually considered by fans to be one of their worst lineups of all time. Here's a montage I got from a 5-minute Google search. I just gotta tell you that doing this is not how you play that guitar solo. Now, I don't care if Dave was 3 years younger than me when he wrote Rust in Peace, that dude is obviously a fraud. Did you catch that? The original lyrics are knocked rock and roll on its ass and put metal on the course, but they hastily ADR'd Dave to sing knocked rock and roll on its butt right here. Now, of course, you don't get to really say ass on Cartoon Network willy-nilly. I just kind of thought this was a cute way to censor it. But hey guys, what's up? It's Editing Huggbees, and I'm editing this 5:01 in the morning. And I didn't notice this when making the video, but I noticed it when I paused on a singular frame in the episode. But Dave Mustaine is holding up a canister of gamer sups in one frame. And that's such a strange fucking coincidence, because if you go to gamer sups and use code Huggbees, which is linked in the description, you can get 10% off of your order right now, and a portion of the profits go to my channel directly, so it's a good way to support me. He's also wearing a t-shirt representing my second channel, Huggbees Gamer Mode, which also is where I make more casual, fun videos that are just goofy, and the ad revenue from that helps me pay for big projects with big men with big wieners. Okay, back to the video. The catch to this concert is the band's instruments were wired with laser cannons, and there's a nice little detail in here where they show Dave's signature on the headstock, which is accurate to his real guitar. I spent a good bit of time trying to dig up a good photo of the real-world model, and I found this adorable picture. Oh, look at Dave, he's just in time for class picture day. Oh, I would have been happier if he smiled, but hang on, wait, hang on. Oh, that's so cute. The rest of the episode is pretty much what you'd expect. The band exponentially rocks out harder and harder to the point of absolutely annihilating the Martian fleet. The short and stout little general and his hot mommy Dommy retreat to fight another day, and Dave and Dodgers celebrate over a hard-fought victory. It's a fun episode. It's a bit weak in the comedy department, but I enjoyed rewatching it after all this time. I personally hope that, Robert Krall gets a Grammy of his own for writing Megadeth's entire song catalog. After all, he did the music. And so, what I consider to be a contender for one of the most diametrically opposed crossovers in cartoon history draws to a close. But before we go, I've got one last topic jotted down here on my notes that I want to discuss. It's a tie home, if you will. It's gonna bring everything full circle. It's going to dive into why I really wanted to talk about this episode. Okay, that's actually not entirely true. I just wanted to rewatch the episode and review it, but it's something that I thought about a lot while making this video. I have a simple question I want you to think about. And seriously, think about it. Really think about it. Don't just blurt out an answer or immediately jump down to the comments and type something. Think about what we've discussed so far, and then think about this question. Why do people hate Dave Mustaine? No, really take that question in, especially if you out there do not like him. I'm not talking about the music. Whether or not you're a fan of the music is purely subjective. Some people just don't like heavy metal, and they're pretty much never going to like his music. That's fine. My question specifically is, why do people really hate Dave Mustaine? The odds are, you don't know a goddamn thing about Dave Mustaine. I think my personal perspective on these issues comes from a different place than the average person because I'm the most talented and famous person to ever exist. I've seen feedback about myself covering the entire spectrum of human emotions. I'm a genius. I'm an idiot. I'm multi-talented. I'm a lazy leech. I'm clever and subversive. I'm one-note and juvenile. I have seen every single piece of possible feedback written about me online. And that amounts to a shocking amount of people shifting from opinion into factual misinformation. Sometimes what some people say about me out there is wrong. Objectively, factually provably wrong. I have seen people assume that I'm friends with other creators who I've never met before in my life. I have seen them talk about reasons behind my career decisions that never happened. And I've seen people invent jokes in my own videos that aren't even remotely what I was trying to say. Let me put it this way. My career on YouTube kick-started from a series designed around tricking people who aren't paying attention. I think I know a little bit about having an audience that holsters incorrect beliefs. Now hear me out, hang on, hear me out. I am not defending Dave Mustaine over anything, and I'm also not saying he did or didn't do things he's been accused of, but I am trying to establish an important precedent for the rest of the video. I'd wager that the amount of people who hate Dave because of either A, something that never actually happened, or B, they were told to hate him for being an asshole is pretty dang high. I cannot tell you the number of people who hate him purely for clashing with Metallica back in the day, and yet he and all the members of Metallica agree in hindsight that him leaving the band was the best decision for everyone. Dave is still, to this day, asked about what happened with Metallica and if he regrets what happened, and that shit happened over 40 years ago. Look at it for its context from the time. How much do you really want to take the word of 40-year-old stories told by witnesses who were all drunk or on drugs at the time that they happened and use them to form an opinion of someone? Now, let's extrapolate into the specifics. I personally am a big fan of Megadeth's music. I've been listening to them for probably about 20 years. I have also very strongly disagreed with Dave politically for my entire life, and I outright reject and stand for the opposite of things that he has publicly stated. Should I hate Dave Mustaine? With the internet bringing more and more personal face and connection to content alongside generations coming after the previous one that grow up even more connected and indoctrinated to it, should I stop listening to Megadeth because of Dave, even though that would completely dismiss the talent and actions of the other members of the band? Would I be in the right to say, well, this guy was a violent alcoholic and violence is bad, so why should I support him? Even though Dave hasn't had a violent outburst since the 80s that I could find and has allegedly been drug-free and over his alcohol addiction since the 90s? With the rise of cancel culture as a concept, I'd be willing to bet that some people believe he should never be allowed to play again. I want to give you even more examples to help muddy the waters. I want to talk about the beloved Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson is one of the most famous and incredible heavyweight boxing champions of the entire world. He is one of the greatest who has ever fought in the sport. Mike has also been arrested 8 times, 5 of which occurred during that very boxing career for some very awful things, like assault and rape. There is a very important caveat there. The specifics of those arrests in question have a lot of gray area around them, but my point is not to debate whether or not he did it. The key point I'm bringing this up for is Mike was still supported during those controversial times, when most people think he did those terrible things. Mike served 3 years of a 6-year prison sentence in 1992, and then went straight back to boxing and even was able to reclaim some of his heavyweight titles. Should Mike have been barred from the sport? Let's cast aside whether or not he is outright guilty or innocent in answering the question, and instead point out something that Mike himself said in relation to his arrest in 1991. There's a lot of things I could have gone to jail for and I deserve to go to jail for, but this wasn't one of them. I didn't do it, and I will never admit to doing it. Mike himself admits that while he didn't do one specific awful thing, he definitely did enough to label himself a bad person. If you skulk around boxing discussions from the time, Mike developed a strong reputation as a violent thug outside of the ring for most of the 90s and 2000s, but he was still allowed to box. And most people just chalk it up to, well, he's a really good boxer and I want to see him box. years. Since the controversies, Mike has navigated various legal charges and spent many years successfully rebuilding his public image and reputation. The evidence is obvious. Look at Mike Tyson today. He's constantly being interviewed on sports and talk shows, and even has a handful of film cameos, such as being a pivotal character in the blockbuster Hangover franchise. But some people think that Mike should still be ostracized today because of the things he did in the past. Is that the right call? There's a viral video from a couple years ago of Mike assaulting a fellow passenger on a flight after that passenger harassed him. Mike didn't face criminal charges due to him being provoked by the other passenger, and the vast majority of people who watched the video say that the other guy was asking for it for constantly bothering Mike. But really meditate on this for a minute. Really give it a thought. Think how this story may have been told in the media if it happened the exact same way it did during Mike's era of being seen as an intimidating, aggressive monster. Imagine if it hadn't been filmed, and all that we had was eyewitness accounts telling the story of what happened. Think how differently people might feel. Mike is far from the only example of society giving preferential treatment to those with talent, status, or beauty. Chris Brown beat the absolute shit out of Rihanna in 2009. Chris Brown also won a Grammy for Best R&B Album in 2012, and currently has 145 million Instagram followers and rising. And they praise him relentlessly with every post. Why don't they hate on Chris Brown in the comments? And I'm a bit skeptical in saying that it's just because all 145 million of them don't know the Rihanna story. And how about when someone's work and personal belief are entirely separate from one another? Megadeth's lyrics are extremely critical of the US government, and Dave is unsurprisingly very willing to agree with his own lyrics in interviews left and right. But how about the case of J.K. Rowling? J.K. Rowling in recent years has had many controversial opinions put on the internet, to the point that former fans are calling for her books to be retroactively banned and for her to be publicly lynched. And while there are examples of her tone-deaf perspectives sprinkled throughout her writing, it's pretty easy to obfuscate the art from the artist when her Harry Potter franchise is a story about a magical school for wizards who fight other wizards. But does the fact that her work stands on its own, aside from who she is as a person, matter? Let's not forget when Hogwarts Legacy launched, there was a strong 50-50 split between the crowds of supporting this game means supporting the enemy and I don't care, I just want to play my children's wizard video game. Things got very messy during that time period. There are plenty of anecdotes from fans that you can read all over the internet, but infighting amongst the fandom was at an all-time high, to the point of flagrant fantasy sibling homicide. And the list goes on, and if you think I'm making statements or judgments about these people, you're missing the point entirely. My point is this. The nature of celebrity differs from person to person, and there's always going to be this balance between personal ethics and morals against entertainment demands and the mythology of not knowing someone personally. Here's a video that went a bit viral of Dave stopping a show to call out security for roughhousing a fan.
Hey, stop. Dudes, don't be fucking hitting people. Alright, that is totally uncool. Hey! Fucking stop hitting that guy!
When articles wrote about this on the internet, they always prefaced it with, I know Dave Mustaine's an asshole and we all hate him, but look at him do this nice thing. Is this enough to sway some Dave haters? Or is that goodwill gesture not good enough to look past whatever reason turns you away from him? This question has no definitive answer. It's entirely subjective to what you consider important and what you want from your entertainers. The nature of celebrity always comes back to this immortal truth. Until you get to know someone personally, they're always whatever's most convenient for you to believe.